The Empty Cup. Once upon a time, in a country where education and intelligence were seen as the highest achievements, there lived a well-known scholar named Daniel, a man admired for his sharp mind, confident speech, and vast knowledge. And people traveled from distant cities to attend his talks because Daniel spoke with authority about philosophy, success, happiness, discipline, and the meaning of life. And over time, this constant admiration quietly shaped his belief that he had already reached a high level of wisdom. And without realizing it, his mind became crowded with conclusions, fixed opinions, and assumptions, leaving very little room for curiosity or doubt. Yet Daniel saw this confidence as strength, not limitation. And one day he heard stories about an old Zen master who lived alone in the mountains. A man without fame, without followers, and without books. Yet people who visited him returned changed, calmer, clearer, and more grounded. And Daniel felt compelled to meet this man not because he wanted guidance, but because he wanted to test the master's wisdom against his own. And so he began the journey believing he already knew what the outcome would be. And after several days of travel, he reached a small, quiet cabin surrounded by stillness, where the old master greeted him warmly and invited him to sit. And almost immediately Daniel began speaking, explaining his views on truth, enlightenment, personal growth, and human nature, speaking at length without pause, quoting thinkers, sharing theories and presenting ideas as if delivering a lecture rather than having a conversation, and the master listened patiently, never interrupting, his calm presence standing in sharp contrast to Daniel's restless certainty. And after a long silence the master stood up, returned with a teapot and 2 cups, and began pouring tea into Daniel's cup, slowly at first, then steadily, until the cup reached the top. And yet the master continued pouring, allowing the tea to spill over the edge and onto the table and floor. And Daniel watched with growing irritation until he finally spoke up, pointing out that the cup was already full and could hold no more. And the master gently met his eyes and explained that this was exactly the lesson, telling Daniel that his mind was just like the overflowing cup, already full of beliefs, opinions, pride, and certainty. And because of that fullness there was no room for new understanding, and until the cup was emptied it could not receive fresh tea, just as until the mind is emptied it cannot truly learn. And these simple words struck Daniel deeply, because for the first time he saw that knowledge without openness becomes a barrier, that certainty can block growth. And as silence filled the room, Daniel felt his confidence soften into awareness, realizing that true wisdom does not come from knowing everything, but from being humble enough to admit there is always more to learn. And in that moment he understood that only an empty cup can truly be filled.